As a young teenager, Laney Blair Davis of Roberta, Georgia, known to her family and friends as LB, began attending football games between the hedges in Athens, Georgia, with her daddy. She got caught up in it all rather quickly. Soon afterward, LB had one dream: to one day attend the University of Georgia and become a bona fide Georgia dog. As her love for UGA football grew, LB discovered Larry Munson, the former and iconic voice of the Dogs. Interestingly, Larry retired from the UGA radio booth when LB was still 3 and died when she was only 7. Old Georgia codgers like me lived and died with every word that came out of Larry's mouth for the 42 seasons he was in the radio booth. But through the power of the internet, LB listened to his famous calls from the past, and her infatuation with Georgia football only grew. She learned all she could about the game of football, specifically about Georgia football and Larry Munson. She says she dove in. While diving and learning, she discovered Larry's friend and sideline reporter, Loran Smith. LB saw a video on YouTube entitled Dear Larry, written and read by Loran to his friend Larry Munson in Bulldog heaven. Loran was just keeping Larry updated on what was going on in Athens after his promotion to the radio booth in the sky. Inspired by Loran Smith, LB began writing her own letters to Larry about games and details she thought he should know about. She was a junior in high school when her letters began. The more she wrote, the more connected she became to the late Larry Munson and the University of Georgia. It was like Larry was her friend. Then the day came. LB applied to the University of Georgia, but she was rejected. Her dreams were shattered, and she was devastated. Sometimes things work out exactly as we dream them. Sometimes they don't. And sometimes dreams are just deferred. After an understandable pause in writing letters to Larry, she finally did. She told him exactly how she felt: angry, sad, rejected, disillusioned, disappointed, and I could go on. You'll hear the letter. But despite her crushing rejection, she chose not to let her dream die. Today, she is a rising junior at the University of Georgia, living the biggest dream of her life in real time. Recently, LB fulfilled another dream. She visited Loran Smith in his home and personally handed him all the letters she had written to Larry. Full circle, they call it. This is a story of shattered dreams, deferred dreams, and living your dream, and the life lessons that come with it. LB's story is also a story of redemption, a Bulldog redemption.
Viewing life from a hearse, it could be worse. Laugh, think, and cry with the country undertaker.
This is Bruce Goddard, and you're listening to the View from a Hearse podcast. I've got with me today Laney Blair Davis is her name. I call her LB. LB, thank you for joining me today. This is going to be fun. I can't wait to have this conversation.
This is going to be so much fun. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Mr. Bruce. I've known of you for a long time, and you and I've been getting to know each other, more over the last year or two, and I just have wanted to be on the podcast since before we even got to know each other.
All you had to do is say, Bruce, I want to be on your podcast. So let's just talk about that a minute. When I think about you, I know your parents. I know your grandparents on both sides, the Davises in Crawford County and the Hobbses.
Yes.
The Botifords. I know all your family. And your mother, Donna, was like a little girl who used to hang around our grocery store when her mother worked for us at the store. She kind of just grew up, and I've loved her all her life. We've always had this special relationship, and it's been pretty cool. And then I watched you mainly through social media. You guys are all over the place. I mean, you got a mom and daddy that takes you all kind of places. You're well-traveled to be your age. We're going to talk about that. But as I watched you, I don't know how we connected through all that, but we did, and I'm glad we did. But you've got quite a story. I know that. So, but I think the world of your mama, that's for sure.
Well, she thinks the world of you. That's kind of why a little over a year ago, I, wanted to meet you and Miss Kathy in person, because I had my whole life heard about Mr. Bruce Goddard. And I mean, I've listened to your podcast, your audio book, I'd heard about you so much. And my mama would tell me funny stories, and we'd seen your son Luke's videos, and we share a birthday. And my mama always said that was her most favorite thing, because two of her most favorite people were born on the same day.
September 20th. September 20th babies, we are, right?
We sure are.
I love it. And I'm going to tell you, from now on September 20th, we're going to do something. We're going to, even if it's the 21st or the 19th, we're going to have dinner or something. We're going to get us together.
We need to.
Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So LB, I want people to hear this story because it's a great, but you are number one, I guess you call it a rising junior. You're about to be a junior at the University of Georgia, and you are a football fan. I mean, that is obvious. I see you and have for several years before you even went to Georgia. We're going to hear that story, but you're at all the games, and you're right in the middle of it. Just talk about your fandom for the University of Georgia Bulldogs.
So for me, and I guess my story with the dogs is kind of funny. Growing up, I was an only child, and my mom is a wedding photographer. So, sometimes on Saturdays she would have to go and, take photos or whatever. And my daddy would want to watch football games. I was just like, I don't understand why we're sitting at this TV and we're watching these people run around on this screen and what they're doing. And I don't really know why this matters.
Isn't that funny? So you didn't know a thing about football as a little girl. You just saw your daddy watching it. Yeah.
And so as time went on, I was kind of like, okay, well, if we're going to sit here and watch this, can I at least explain it to me? I want to know what we're watching here. He would kind of tell me this or tell me that. And that's kind of how I figured it out. Well, when Georgia would play, he would just scream or, clap or be really excited, real animated. And I just couldn't figure that out. I told him, messing with him, this is a terrible joke now. But, back in the day, I would be like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to be a Florida fan. I was like, I'm just going to be a Florida fan. So I swore up and down I was a Florida fan for a long time. Never really was, but it kind of kept up some fun between me and my daddy, and we kind of got to compete. So anyhow, along came 2018 football season, and obviously that is the year the Dogs made their run to the national championship in Atlanta. And I was still trying to just not like him, and I wasn't going to be a bandwagon. I was like, no, I was not doing that. But I remember at the end of that Rose Bowl in 2018, that was a great ending to a game. It was it Sonny Michel, I believe he got it in right there at the end. And I remember we were also listening to Scott Howard, and the way he called the end of that game, it was like I just couldn't not fall in love. I can remember like this yesterday. The Dogs had obviously previously gone to the SEC, which is in Atlanta, and he said, he's just screamed, and the Dogs are going back to Atlanta. And I don't know what it was, but all of them coming together on that field and him saying that, and it was just like all of it happening. It just stole my heart. I mean, I got pulled into it, and it was like, since then it's been die hard. I couldn't stop.
When did you start going to games?
So I went to my first game on my 10th birthday, actually. So actually before all this happened, it was against Troy, and it was a great game.
Right.
But my daddy and I, at the beginning of the 2019 season, pretty religiously started going. And then my mama started coming with us. And the COVID season, we didn't go. But after that, I mean, it was every weekend. And it wasn't even planned. It was just oh, we got to go. Or, oh, we want to go. Or
how'd you get the tickets?
So my daddy is a wholesale tire salesman, and one of his customers had season tickets. So for a long time, he got them from him. We have a ticket broker named Chris. We go through him a lot to get other tickets. We used to do that too. We would go through people and find our way into the stadium every Saturday.
So what I want you to tell me, so after you became a fan, and now you all of a sudden find yourself in Athens, and after this Scott Howard thing where you heard him screaming, you said, this is special. Tell me what it felt like being in those stands when all of a sudden you were getting what was going on there. Talk about that.
So I go in, I'm really excited, and I'm looking around, I'm like, wow, like we're really here. Like this is like, like the real thing. Because obviously on my 10th birthday when I went, I was like, okay, whatever. But flash forward, I really was having a great time at the second one. And so I just remember standing there with my daddy, and then it kind of had started, all the pregame festivities had kind of started, and then I heard Larry do the battle hymn for the very first time, and it's like, for a split second, it felt like the world really did stop turning for me. Like, it felt very much like a God moment. I
when you
just heard him start talking, and I just started sobbing. And when I will be the first person to cry over a football game or whatever. So I'm just like sobbing. My daddy turns, he's like, what is happening to you? Like, are you okay? Did something happen? I was like, no, I just love this. I was like, what he just said, I was like, I'm supposed to be here. Like, I love this.
I'll tell you what, let's stop, and I'm going to play what you just heard. I'm going to play that. She's talking about Larry Munson. Somebody my age remembers Larry Munson well. LB was not born when Larry was calling the radio voice for the Georgia Bulldogs. He was so good. And so is Scott Howard. I'm going to tell you.
Yes.
My days, it was almost all the games were on the radio. It very rarely was on TV, or never on TV. You listen to Munson. He does this thing at the beginning of the game.
Glory, glory to old Georgia. Heroes have graced the field before you, men with hearts, bodies, and minds of which the entire Bulldog Nation can be justifiably proud. The tradition of unbridled excellence, demonstrated by these individuals and many others, spans more than a full century. Stands ready to take the field of battle, to assume the reins of the Georgia forebears and continue that tradition, understanding that there is no tradition more worthy of envy, no institution worthy of such loyalty as the University of Georgia. As we prepare for another meeting between the hedges, let all the Bulldog faithful rally behind the men who now wear the red and black with two simple words, which express the sentiments of the entire Bulldog Nation.
So all of a sudden you're standing there and you're hit with that moment. So I'm sure you began thinking about, who is this Larry Munson guy, right? That had to cross your mind, right?
Yes. So I remember, asking my daddy, I was like, well, who is this? Seems like that's Larry Munson. And he kind of like gave a brief description of, Larry and being the voice of the dogs and all of that. And then we, kept going every weekend, and every weekend fell more in love with it. Like, it was like my favorite part of the whole game. Like, we could, blow somebody out. It could be an overtime. It didn't matter how the game ended. It was always that beginning part of the game that was my favorite part. And so just as time went on, I kind of got more interested, and it had almost become like this thing where it was, I don't want to say he in a way felt like he'd become my friend or something, but it was like, when you go over to somebody's house and there's somebody standing at the door and they say hello and give you a hug and welcome you in, it felt like he was the person standing at the front door waiting on me every Saturday.
Did you go back and listen to some of his calls?
Yes. I kind of dove in, and I just wanted to know about him, and I wanted to know about his family and, his career and how he got there. And I mean, I've read books, I've read articles, I've watched videos, movies. I've really dove in because I was so interested in this person. And because I really had no clue other than what my daddy had told me.
Right.
So
True. So, my brother, George, is 2 years older than me, and his good friend, Dennis Parks. Dennis was a friend with Munson, and they ate lunch one time. George, my brother, told me that he was surprised that Larry was really introverted. He was nothing like he was expecting that you hear on that radio, and I'm sure you've read all that by now, but that he was a different personality in person than he was that you heard in the radio booth, right?
yes, and I think that is so not strange. It's just, that's so hard to believe because, he gets in there and he got in his space and he was so animated. And honestly, I think that's part of the reason that Larry and I don't know, are kind of alike. Like, I feel like that might be why I've always felt as though, we were like kind of tied together because I'm fairly introverted myself, out in public, but you put me in Sanford Stadium and I'm screaming and crying and every other emotion. And, you start talking to me about Georgia football and I'll talk to you for 3 hours. Like, we're very similar in that way, where if you put us in that scene, we just open up. It's always been like that.
So at some point you heard, watched or whatever, and I'm sure you've heard it many, many times now, Loran Smith, who was a sideline reporter. I just did a podcast with Loran Smith recently, and this is really what spurred this conversation between LB and I now. But you heard Loran's letter he wrote to Larry that really caught your heart too, right?
Yes. I remember I was sitting at my kitchen table one night and I found this video while I was doing my digging on Larry. It was just, one of my nights I fell down a rabbit hole and I clicked on the video, and it was again another one of those moments where it just felt like God was talking to me. It was like it was a hard thing for me to comprehend. I was just like, this is amazing. Like, I loved it.
Larry Munson, Cloud 9, Bulldog Heaven. Dear Larry, you wouldn't believe what happened 2 weeks ago against LSU. You would have broken your chair if you had been with us when Georgia kept fighting back against one of the most physical teams ever to play between the hedges. You would have been worried until that last Zach Mettenberger pass fell incomplete. Then you would have, like the rest of us, gone over the top. Surely you would have had some classic call. You would have given us something to savor through the season and to warm our hearts in winter. I know you would have offered a historic call to match the spectacular performance on the field. It's so wild in Athens, Larry, these days, much like when you and Herschel rose to the occasion in 1980. What was that? A 2-cigar-a-game year for you? You would have had to have 3 cigars against LSU if you had gotten home from the stadium before midnight. Larry, you've never seen such post-game traffic as we're having now. Nobody leaves the stadium until the final tick on the clock. This is a cardiac team. After the LSU game, the South stands didn't empty until the players came back on the field to say thanks. Coach Rick actually broke down on national television and in the locker room after the game. You never cried on the air, but you might have after LSU. Larry, I'm telling you for sure you would have broken your chair if you'd been in the radio booth named for you in the Georgia press box. The game and the way it was played would have given you your greatest challenge. You would have had to top Run Lindsey Run, Yeah, 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 even Hobnail Boot.
We just stepped on her face with a hobnail boot and dropped her nose.
Against LSU, you would have had to rise to the occasion for both the offense and the defense. You would have been calling on Lady Luck as Georgia scored the go-ahead touchdown to take a 44-41 lead with 147 seconds left. But you would have been worried. Too much time on the clock for Mettenberger, you would have lamented. As for the Georgia defense, which rose to the occasion 4 straight downs, I was in the press box hearing you from somewhere saying, "Hunker down, you guys, just one more time."
I know I'm asking a lot, you guys, but hunker it down one more time. He threw a high, wobbly pass, and the Dogs broke it up. They broke it up. They broke it up. Dogs have won it. Somebody threw something on us. Dogs have won it. Oh, look at the sugar falling out of the sky. Look at the sugar falling out of the sky.
You did it, Larry. You got through to our guys on the field. We thank you for that. We know we can still call on you in big games. Larry, you would have a hard time in the booth this year. We're playing so many freshmen on defense, it would take you half a season to figure out the lineup. The special team mistakes would drive you crazy, but you'd love this team's heart if they can just keep from breaking it. This is a special team, Larry, but we not only worried about Knoxville, we worry about Jacksonville and Auburn and Atlanta, just as I'm sure you would be. Your old friend, Loran.
And it was prior to that 2021 season. And so I kind of thought about it, and I was like, I don't know if Loran is writing letters to Larry anymore. And I don't know if anybody's keeping Larry updated. But I was like, I want to be the person to make sure he's still getting his news. I want him to know that somebody is still thinking about him down here enough to make sure he's still able to keep up with the Dogs.
Let me just tell you what she's done, and I'm going to let her read a couple of them. She's been writing letters to Larry. After she saw Lauren's letter, it's been her kind of thing to stay in touch with Larry and stay in tune. But she's got a diary of football games that when you hear her or read her letter, you remember whatever she's talking about, but it's almost like a diary of some of these big games. So I want you to read at least a couple of them, and so people can get an idea of what you've been doing.
Yes. Okay, so I am going to read y'all 2 of my favorite ones, and obviously one of them is the first national championship game. I can't leave that out.
And you were there, right?
I was. That was another one of those things where it was like very last minute decision, and it was just like, we just can't miss it. Like, we just can't not be there.
And you headed to Indiana, right?
We did. We drove because there was snow. It was kind of difficult with flights. Flights were just so hard to come by. This is kind of towards the beginning of that 2021 season, and this is one of the first ones that I really felt like I'd opened up. Actually, really, this might be the 3rd or 4th one, but it was like it had gotten easier at this point. And
you're a junior in high school now, reading this letter?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Dear Larry, they seem to be chasing after something, and I think they may catch it. Today, the number 2 ranked Georgia Bulldogs defeated Auburn. Tonight, the unranked Texas A&M team defeated number 1 Alabama. Do you know what that means? Tomorrow morning, the Dogs will officially be the finest of the land. They will officially be on top. They will be the number 1 team in the nation. Prior to beating Auburn, the Dogs had 2 SEC shutouts in a row. That hasn't happened since 1980. I mean, Kirby did say this team is 1980 rare. Larry, I think our dream is coming true. I don't even know if I can believe that, but they seem to shock me each week. Next weekend, we will face Kentucky, the only other undefeated SEC team, in Athens. We will hear them say for the first time in 13 years, make some Sanford Stadium noise for your number 1 Georgia Bulldogs. It's got a pretty good ring to it, doesn't it, Larry? Until next Saturday, yours, LB.
Love it. How about the one when they won the national championship?
I remember writing this at 4 a.m. in Indianapolis, sobbing, so overcome with emotion. And even there is a video, at the end of the national championship, and you can hear me crying, screaming, "Thank you, Larry," in it. that he was there and he was orchestrating it. And I don't know. It's just crazy. But this is the national championship letter. Dear Larry, they hunkered down. They really did it. They finished the drill. They didn't break our hearts. They put them back together. As I stood in Lucas Oil Stadium on January 10th, 2022, something was telling me you were there. The entire second half, I called on you. Of course, you know that because you were listening. When Keeley called that ball, I knew you were looking down from Bulldog heaven, smiling and passing a wink. I know you watched Coach Smart hug Coach Dooley. I know you were probably in the box with Scott calling it. I know you were there, Larry. I know you were looking down at us before the fourth when we were all praying, and you were smiling the biggest smile because you knew our lives were about to change. January 15th, what a day. The day that they brought her home. They raised a new flag in Athens that day, and Larry, it was beautiful. They even played the battle hymn, and I have to say, that was your sweetest one yet. That day was special. I'm sure you enjoyed it. Then there was January 16th, the day you sent the sugar. You sealed the fact that you were indeed there in Indy when you let the sugar fall from Bulldog heaven. Larry, you wouldn't believe the happiness coming from Athens these days. I've never seen it so happy and full of joy. It's been a dream. Also, thanks again. They really did it, Larry. They hunkered down. One last time. Your friend, LBD.
That's unbelievable. What's funny is they also won it the next year.
They went on and we did again. Yes.
And won like 65-7 or whatever it was. It was a blowout, right?
Yes, and we went to that game as well. We flew to Las Vegas for that one and drove over to LA. And I remember walking in and we were surrounded by, all these TCU fans, and we were nervous. Like they were really confident, and we all seemed really, really nervous. And looking back now, it's just so wild, especially now knowing how it ended up going. I mean, we had gotten to do it, back to back. We'd really taken a liking to Stetson Bennett. So to watch him come off the field for the last time as a Dog, and
oh yeah,
I will say it was amazing. But it did not top the first one, obviously. But nothing will ever top that ever.
So let me tell you something amazing. It shows you how old I am. I was in New Orleans when we won the national championship in 1980 with Herschel playing against Notre Dame. I was there. In fact, I went 2 or 3 years in a row. We were in the Sugar Bowl. I think three years in a row there. I know it's 2, but I think 3. I went 2 out of the 3 years anyway. So unbelievable. It was a long time between 1980 and 2021, right? Is that when we won the first one? That was a long time. So now let's keep talking here. So you're writing these letters and you continue to write them. You picked a great time to be a Georgia fan. I just tell you, I mean, it didn't get any better than all these 2, and we could have won 3 in a row. I mean,
yes.
Kirby's done incredible. I mean, unbelievable what the program he's put together. We were always pretty good, but I've lived through a lot of dismal seasons and disappointing seasons, so this was good stuff. But now, as you keep writing the letters, you're becoming bigger and bigger Georgia Bulldog fan, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Your dream was to go to University of Georgia. I went to University of Georgia, but it was easier to get in 1972 than it is now. And so your heart was broken when you applied to Georgia and did not get in. Listening to this story, I can't imagine. I'm sure your mom and daddy's heart was broken. Just talk about how the letter and you got back, and just tell me a little bit about what you experienced.
Yes. It was just such a wild, it was really just a crazy day. Obviously, I knew that it was going to be, there was a chance that it wasn't going to happen. And I knew that. And I knew it was probably even a greater chance that it wasn't going to happen than the fact that it might. I remember waking up that day. It was St. Patrick's Day, actually. And I woke up and I put on my Lucky Georgia shirt. I put it on. It was the shirt I met Jordan Davis in. It was the shirt we won the first natty in. And the second natty for that matter. And so I was like, I'm going to wear this today. I mean, this is like the ultimate championship here, And I went to school, and then I came home, and I went for a drive around, just the back roads and listened to music and prayed. And then I got home, and we were sitting in our living room, and I opened the email, and I didn't have the fireworks and the big congratulations pop up. It was just, we regret to inform you, yada, yada, yada. And so, I mean, it was devastating. We were all upset. I had it felt like the world was ending. Like Like, it was just awful. And so my mom and I were like, okay, well, my mom was like, well, we're going to get you out of the house. So we need to go find something to do.
You got to understand, as a parent, they were upset because you were upset.
Yes.
They knew that was such a big thing to do. There's such a lesson here. Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
Folks, just listen to this story, but you've heard her. She's been writing letters to Larry Munson, just a crazy fan, and her lifetime dream was to be at University of Georgia, and now she gets this letter of rejection, and it was a tough day for all of you, right?
It was. And, my mom and daddy have always been very supportive of me, go after your dreams and go after what it is you want to do. They've always told me, one person's no is another person's yes. And just because it's no right now doesn't mean it's going to be a no forever. And so they were very upset as well, but they also were very much full of hope that the day would come. Like, it would come around, it would happen. And honestly, for a few days, though, or a few weeks even, they were, people would ask, well, are you going to transfer in? Or and I'm like, I really don't know. Like, I don't know right now. I was, people would ask me questions and I would just really kind of shut people down.
You were upset and you were angry. So let's take a minute and read the letter you wrote to Larry in the middle of this. That's worth hearing.
I wrote Larry this letter because I filled him in on so much throughout the years, and then I felt like I'd let him down, and so I felt like I had to write him this letter. So this is what I wrote him. This is actually a couple days before my first day at the University of North Georgia campus in Watkinsville, and so this is what it says. It says, Dear Larry, this bulldog has lost her bark. I haven't barked or wanted to in 136 days. 136 days of feeling lost, like my whole world was snatched right out from under me. What I viewed as heaven on earth is my happiest place. My home away from home rejected me. All I ever wanted was to show other people how great it was, and that when you need something or somewhere to love, that this is the place. I'm happy for those who get to live the dream, but it hurts. Every day it hurts. Some days it gets better. Today it's not one. I don't feel like wearing my loud and proud outfits anymore. I don't feel like walking into Sanford Stadium. I don't feel like hearing the bark. I don't feel like a bulldog anymore. I am deep down. I know love like that can't just escape and leave, but I've learned it can hide. I haven't written to you in a while, mainly because I didn't want to have to tell you that my bark is gone. I didn't want to tell you that I can't love them like I used to. I didn't want to tell you that my letters to Bulldog Heaven hurt to read, to write, to think about. It all hurts. I feel like someone stripped me of my purpose. The only thing I have ever felt like I one-upped everyone on got taken away. This is it. This is all I ever wanted. This is all I was ever better at. I love the Bulldogs better than anyone else, but I'm just not sure I can do that anymore. I love you, Larry, and I'm sorry. I may not say them anymore, but those two words always linger in my mind. They always have, and they always will. Your friend, LBD.
And those two words are go dogs, right?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Folks, you listen to L.B. Davis, and we're going to be right back. This story gets better, so just hold on. So LB, you were brokenhearted. I know your family was brokenhearted. You wrote that when you were at North Georgia, and you made a decision to go to a college close to Athens, so you could still be involved in Athens and go to ball games with the intention of making the grades to get accepted. But in the meantime, you got accepted at Ole Miss.
I got accepted into Ole Miss, and I had started the process of applying to Auburn, and I got accepted into Mercer and Georgia College and just a few other spots around the state. And I wanted that option because I hadn't completely gotten settled with the idea that I just, the UGA freshman experience just wasn't going to happen. And I was like, I don't know if I can live in Athens and let this just basically tease me every single day that I'm there. I was like, I don't know where I'm going to be in August.
I'm sure.
But ultimately, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to decide to transfer. And I don't know, what I'm going to do. But I was like, I loved Athens, and I loved the school so much that I was just like, maybe that's going to be enough for me, just being there, with the people, because it wasn't about the school necessarily as much as it was, well, the things that I love were still there. Just because I couldn't go to school there every day didn't mean that those things were gone.
Right.
And one day my mama looked at me and she said, LB, if the football team made decisions on people who got in and who didn't, I promise you they would have accepted you. And I don't know what was in that.
That's the truth. That's a great statement. That's a fact.
I was like, you know what? They're still the same now. I was like, I can't take my anger out on people who had no control over, what happened. I was like, I can't leave Larry, and I can't leave my football team. I can't leave this place that I loved because some people reading an application were like, not this time, not yet.
So let's tell people what happened. You went to North Georgia. You made a 4.0, and you transferred in, and you just finishing your real first full year at Georgia, right?
Yes, I just finished my first semester a couple months ago, and I'm into the second one now, and it is still surreal. I wake up every day so excited to get up and go to school. I'm so grateful every day. I call my mama on my walk from my car to my class, and I just tell her every day I cannot believe it's happened. Like, it is not even real. Like, I just look at it. And
what's the lesson here? I mean, think about what you went through. Your dreams were crushed, and now you are living your dream. What's the lesson for people listening to this? I mean, it's incredible.
Well, for me, I took out of it, God may put a no in front of it. God's not telling you no. He's just saying not yet.
Right.
And there's something in patience. You've got to learn patience with the Lord because his plan is better. And people told me that over and over and over and over again, like God's timing, God's plan. And I was just like, okay, I know, but like right now I'm just really mad.
Yeah.
But no, I look back and I'm like, there was a plan. Like as an only child, I would not have survived in a dorm with another person. And there's a whole lot of stuff looking back. I'm like, it worked out the way it should. And even now I have friends or people that ask me about how the transferring process goes, and they ask me questions, and I kind of try to help as many people as I can go through that experience because I dove all in. I mean, I know everything there is to know about transfer and into UGA. So if anybody out there knows anybody, y'all send them my way. I can help.
You have become the expert. So I got to ask you,
expert.
What was it like when you went to your first Georgia game sitting in the student section? Just tell us what you were thinking. I mean, you've been to those games, but you hadn't been in the student session. Now you are a bona fide Georgia dog living your dream. Talk about that first game. Tell me what you were feeling.
It was just so surreal for me because it was, I got to sit there, and it was actually in Atlanta in the Chick-fil-A kickoff ball. And I was just sitting up there, and I remember just like watching them down there running around because we kind of sat up in the nosebleeds, that the student section goes all the way up in there. And I just remember watching them like down there, and you really can't tell who's who or what's what, but you could obviously see the difference in the colors, everything. But I could just remember seeing them run around with the G on their helmet and going, wow, that's my school. Like, I represent the G, they represent the G. Like, we're just like all a part of the same thing. And then like, I remember the first game I watched on the TV as a student, I was like, wow, like that's my school. Like, I go to school there. Like, it was just so, like, I just couldn't believe it. It was just an unbelievable moment.
So fast forward, how about your first experience in Sanford Stadium, sitting in the student session? That's a whole nother deal than being in Atlanta, right?
Yes, it was so special. We sat in the student section on that end zone under the scoreboard, and I remember when the battle hymn started, I remember turning around and word for word, I recited it with Larry. And I mean, I was just sobbing. I mean, I was so emotional because I had waited so long to be able to do that. I'd waited so long to be in the student section and hear Larry say those words. And that was just so special. It was so special.
Now you're at Georgia, and you've written these letters to Larry. You were very honest with him. You were angry. You were upset. Now you're a Georgia fan. You're writing letters to Larry. And there's this guy named Loran Smith who everybody that's associated with University of Georgia knows. He was Larry's sideline reporter, and you had this kind of thing. You wanted to meet him and to share these letters that you had written to Larry. Just saw exactly the way you saw Loran write a letter to Larry. So now you got to meet him, and you actually went to his home and met him and his wife and shared these letters. So talk about that.
So when I started writing the letters, as we talked about earlier, it kind of all sparked from an idea that I kind of got from Mr. Loran. And from the get-go, I remember writing these letters and saying to myself and to even Larry, like, one day I promise I'll get him these letters. Like, one day he will read them. One day he will know somebody's been keeping Larry up to date. I want to share these with him because that was like my Super Bowl for these letters, like in my own head. Like, it was like, of all the great things to come, like, this is the goal. Like, I want Mr. Loran to read these letters, to have these letters. And so when Mr. Bruce posted that he was having a podcast with Mr. Loran, I was just so excited because I've spent years trying to catch him at the little booth outside the stadium, or I'd see him walk by, on the sideline at the stadium, and I'd be trying to catch him, or, there's just been so many times I've tried so hard to just get in contact where I can be like, hey, just let me email them to you something. And so when Mr. Bruce said he was doing a podcast, I was like, I'm so jealous. I almost want to know, what kind of sorcery did you have here to make this all go down? And so Mr. Bruce, being the, amazing person he is, got me all connected, and Mr. Loran and I shared some phone calls and emails, and I'd gone to his office, and I called him, I was like, hey, am I at the right office? And he was like, oh, I'm actually at home. And I was like, oh, okay. And he was like, just come to my house and we'll talk here. So he gave me his address, and I drove over there, and he came to the door and he opened it, and he was like, come on into the living room. And, he turned on all the lamps and everything. We sat down and we talked about our travels and art and his career, and, how I've jumped between wanting to be a journalism major and a psychology major. And we just talked about all that. And then I had my, special moment where I got to hand him my envelope full of letters, and he sat there and he read a few of them in front of me. And that was just so special seeing him because I guess, too, in the video of him writing Larry a letter, you can see him with his little reading glasses on writing the letter. And so seeing him with his reading glasses on, looking down at my letters and reading them, and it just really, it looked like the video almost unfolding in front of my eyes. And so that was really special.
I hope you got a picture of that, did you?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I did.
Good. That's unbelievable. Wow. So you're talking about full circle. That came right around. Now you're living your dream. You're giving your letters to his sidekick. And, of course, Loran Smith's story is a whole nother story. This man's written a dozen books. He's one of the most beloved people ever at the University of Georgia. I had a great conversation with him a couple of podcasts back. LB, what a story. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. So you mentioned what you majored in. What are you majoring in? What are you going to do? Do you know?
So as of right now, I am a psychology major, and I hope to become a sports psychologist or either a child kind of teenager psychologist. I used to want to write about football and about games and all of this stuff. But it was always about the people and their story, and just wanting to know what motivated them to do what they were doing, and what their dream was and how they got there. And one day I realized, I don't know if I want to go and tell the story of how they got there, or if I want to be one of the people that helps them get there. And so throughout my life, I have been helped in so many ways. And I just felt that the Lord was telling me that I needed to help others in the way he had helped me. And I needed to give that back. And so I've decided that I really do think, as of right now, I'm kind of leaning towards child psychology.
But let me tell you something. that may change, and if it does, that's okay, because I got all the way up to my last quarter, and I was still deciding what I was going to major in. I was in business world, but I'd taken enough courses. I could have been in insurance. I could have been in marketing. I could have been in business management. So you still got room to figure that out, and it's hard to figure it out at where you are in life. But I can tell you what you're doing, and I know you're doing it well. You enjoy every minute. You live in the best days of your life, dear. I've been there. I lived in Athens for 4 years. I tell people I spent 4 years of my life and about 10 years of my daddy's money in Athens. There's no place like it. There's no tradition more worthy of envy, no institution worthy of such loyalty as the University of Georgia. And boy, that is true. If you went to school there, you know that. And it is fun talking to somebody that's got you a full-fledged Georgia Bulldog, period, but you're also a Georgia Bulldog fan.
I tell people all the time, like, you fall in this trap and you will never get back out. Like, you will bleed red and black for the rest of your life.
I just wrote a check for my tickets, for the donation and for the ordering the tickets. I'm still doing it. I'm 70 years old and still sending the money up there. And I don't go to many games, but I still get the tickets. I can't stop doing it. You know, you never quit being a Georgia dog.
No, you don't.
That is for sure. So I want you to tell me, and we mentioned this early on, but your mom and dad, I know your mom really well, they've invested in you.
Yes.
Your mother, she's giving you every opportunity to have your horizons expanded with your travel. And I'm sure in some of those times when you were younger, you were probably wondering what in the heck we're doing. But just talk about your parents and the importance they've been in your life.
I think growing up as an only child definitely has a big thing to do with it. So my parents are kind of considered, I guess, younger parents for people my age. We've done stuff together ever since I was little. You know, I didn't have siblings to play with, so I played with my mom and my dad. And we live in a really small town, and, you know, there's not stuff to just go out and do. So it was, you know, let's go outside and let's do stuff together, or let's go ride off somewhere and ride down some random roads for the day, and, like, let's just see what we can find. So we've just really spent so much time together throughout my life, and people think that it's so crazy that I like my parents that much. And I'm like, I love hanging out with my parents. Like, y'all don't love hanging out with your parents. But also my friends will tell anybody that I evidently have the cool parents. But we've had so many great opportunities to travel and see our beautiful country and this beautiful world. I mean, my mom and I have car camped in her Suburban, all the way from Georgia to Seattle, Georgia to Montana, Georgia to Maine. Like, we've done so many road trips together. My daddy will fly out and meet us, and, you know, obviously so many beach trips and some trips, a trip across the pond this past summer.
Yeah, I saw y'all in London.
My mom and I.
Yeah, I saw
yes. That. We also went to Newfoundland this past summer, and we went and saw whales, and that was amazing. And so we've just had great opportunities and time to spend together. And, you know, we kind of, a long time ago, it was decided, you know, let's not do like Christmas presents necessarily or your birthday. Like, let's just go somewhere and do something together. And having those experiences over things is so valuable.
Oh my goodness. I'm going to tell you, you're going to do well in life, and there's no question whatever you decide to do, you're going to do well. And if you become a parent, if you become a mama, you have had wonderful, wonderful teacher.
Yes.
In your mom and in your dad. Incredible the job they've done raising you, and the relationship that you all have together is pretty cool to watch. We've talked about never giving up on your dreams, and you never know, like you said, a door closes, another door open. You've seen that happen. What advice do you have for people that are listening to this that maybe they just got I quote the letter that says, yes, I was not accepted? What is your advice?
My advice is, it's going to be hard. It's going to probably suck for a little while. And there's going to be days where you wonder if you still even care. And this goes for everything in your life. Things might get hard, and it's like, well, what's the point? But for me, looking back now, I can say that every hardship, every hard thing or bad thing that's happened, I wouldn't go back and I wouldn't change it if I could. I would still go through it and I would learn from it. But extend yourself the same grace you extend to others, and just be patient. It will all come around and come along how it's supposed to. And as aggravating as it might sound, God's timing and God's plan is the way to just kind of follow, and just don't give up on yourself. Like, believe that you can do it, because you can. Just because something's hard doesn't mean it's impossible. And, nothing good worth having is easy to come by. So just be patient with yourself and extend yourself some grace, and just keep fighting for what it is you want and for your dream, because you deserve to accomplish that if that's what you really want, what you really love.
Well, I want you to do me a favor, because what are you, 20?
Yes, sir.
You're going to have a lot more disappointments in this life. There's going to be a lot of good stuff, but it's just like the rain. It rains every now and then, but the sun comes up the next day. It gets dark every night. The sun comes up the next morning. Life is a series of ups and downs. Don't ever forget the lesson you have learned through this, because this lesson can carry you the rest of your life, no matter what you're facing. You can hear everybody else say the right things to you, like your parents were saying, but you have lived it, and don't ever forget it, because it can take you places that you never thought possible.
Yes, sir. I'm very grateful for it now. I can say, looking back on it.
Well, you are a sweetheart, LB. This has been so much fun talking to you.
This has been so much fun. Thank you so much, Mr. Bruce, for everything. And I'm so happy I've finally been on the podcast. This is so great.
Yeah, you could have been on this podcast. You can be on it whenever you want. And your mom, too. I need to have her on, talk about how to be a mama.
Oh, my goodness. Y'all could have such great conversations. There would be so many stories to tell.
Oh, my goodness. She was this cute little girl. We were buddies when she was just a little girl hanging around the store. She'd be there all the time. I've been keeping up with her all our lives, all of her life anyway. Thank you so much, LB. You're amazing. Love you very much.
Love you. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, bye-bye.
All right.
Viewing life from a hearse, it could be worse. Laugh, think, and cry with the country undertaker.